The night my father raised his glass and implied I took the easy road, was the night I decided I would never shrink again. My name is Abigail Turner. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've lived in two different worlds. In one world, I command operations, manage high-level logistics, and make decisions that carry real consequences. In the other, I'm the quiet daughter who never quite found her direction. If you've ever been underestimated by the very people you would have defended without hesitation, then you already understand how dangerous silence can be. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to hold your ground after being publicly dismissed, hit like and subscribe. Because this story isn't just about respect. It's about what happens when people finally see the truth they ignored for years. I grew up believing my family knew me. Children assume that, don't they? That the people who raise you understand who you are becoming. It takes adulthood to realize that sometimes they only see the version that makes them comfortable. My younger sister, Lily Turner, was the golden child in ways that weren't obvious but were constant. She was social, expressive, easy to celebrate. I was structured, reserved, drawn to systems and order. By 12, I was in Civil Air Patrol. By 17, I knew I would commission. Discipline wasn't rebellion for me. It was identity. My father, retired Army Colonel David Turner, respected rank. He respected titles. But he respected them in theory. When I earned them, he treated them like hobbies. My mother smiled politely at my milestones and then pivoted the conversation back to Lily's internships, Lily's relationships, Lily's marketing awards. I didn't resent her. Not then. I told myself it didn't matter. Respect would come with time. It didn't. When I commissioned as a second lieutenant, my parents attended the ceremony. My father shook my hand and said, "Don't screw it up." My mother hugged me and asked if I'd considered graduate school, in case this doesn't work out. I made captain at 27. I sent a family group text with a photo of the new insignia on my shoulders. Lily replied with heart emojis. My father wrote, "Good job." My mother responded 2 days later. Meanwhile, Lily's engagement announcement triggered a week-long celebration. So when her engagement dinner invitation arrived 11 days before the event, forwarded from my mother's email with no personal note, I wasn't surprised. My name was printed smaller than the others on the digital invite. Tiny details reveal intention. I rearranged my schedule, submitted leave, confirmed attendance. No one acknowledged my reply. The dinner was held in an upscale brick venue downtown. Exposed beams. Warm lighting. The kind of place designed to look effortless in photographs. I arrived 15 minutes early, navy dress, low heels, posture straight out of habit. My mother greeted me with, "You made it." Not, "I'm glad you're here." Just confirmation of arrival. My father stood near the bar, commanding the room without uniform but never without presence. He nodded once in my direction and returned to his audience. Lily glowed at the center, white cocktail dress, hand resting on her fiancé's arm. Daniel Brooks. Army Major. I had met him twice. Briefly. I took my seat near the back, between a distant cousin and one of Lily's college friends. No one asked about my work. During speeches, my mother thanked the florist, the caterer, Daniel's parents who flew in from Virginia. She thanked Lily's best friends by name. She did not mention me. My father spoke next, praising Lily's career in marketing, her real-world achievements, her determination. She built something tangible, he said. Tangible. The words settled heavily. I lifted my glass when everyone else did, though something inside me hardened. Then came the conversations. An aunt leaned over and asked if I was still doing that Air Force thing. A family friend asked my father if I had made it past training yet. He laughed lightly and said, "She's been in for a while." That was the defense. I didn't correct anyone. Not because I couldn't. Because I was collecting data. Emotion is information. Information is leverage. The worst moment came after dessert. My father cleared his throat again, glass raised. "We're proud of Lily," he said warmly. "She chose the harder path. She built a real career." He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. The implication echoed louder than any direct insult. I kept my face neutral. Years of training make that second nature. A retired Navy uncle approached me later. "So what do you actually do?" he asked. "Operations," I replied. "Logistics." He nodded with polite disinterest. "Ever get promoted?" "I'm a captain," I said calmly. His eyebrows lifted in mild disbelief. "Ha! Good for you. Good for you." The phrase repeated like a script. Lily found me near the end. "Thanks for coming," she said, distracted. "I know you're busy with your stuff." Stuff. I stayed until the scheduled end time. I congratulated Daniel's parents. I thanked the venue coordinator. I left without saying goodbye to my father. In the car, I sat in silence before starting the engine. At work, people knew my call sign. They knew my record. They knew what I carried and what I'd accomplished. At home, I was an afterthought. That night, I realized something critical. They didn't disrespect me out of cruelty. They did it out of ignorance. They had never asked enough questions to understand who I had become. And I had let it slide for years because I thought competence would eventually speak for itself. I was wrong. Silence protects your composure. It does not correct a narrative. The next morning, I processed the situation the way I would any operational failure. What happened? Public dismissal. Why? Lack of understanding reinforced over time. What is the objective going forward? Decide whether to tolerate it or alter the environment. 3 weeks later, my phone rang repeatedly during a briefing. Lily. Then my mother. Then Lily again. I stepped outside and returned the call. Lily answered in a panic. "Our wedding planner quit. 3 months out. I don't know what to do." I listened quietly. "I need someone organized. Someone who can handle logistics." "You do that kind of thing, right?" "That kind of thing." The irony almost made me laugh. She had no idea what I managed on a daily basis. "What exactly do you need?" I asked. "Everything," she said. "Run it. Please." I paused. This was an opportunity. Not for revenge. For clarity. "I'll do it," I said finally. "But I have full authority. No interference. No second guessing. If I take this on, I run it my way." "Done," she said instantly. She didn't hesitate. She just needed the problem solved. I hung up and stared at the wall of my office. They had never seen what I was capable of because they'd never been forced to. Now they would be. I wasn't doing this for gratitude. I wasn't doing it for approval. I was doing it because I was finished being misunderstood. If it took executing a flawless wedding to make them confront the truth, then so be it. I had 12 weeks. I've planned missions with less. And this time, I wasn't staying quiet. I approached my sister's wedding the same way I approached a deployment briefing. Not emotionally. Not personally. Operationally. 12 weeks. Multiple vendors. Fragile egos. High visibility environment. Failure not an option. If they wanted logistics, I was about to give them logistics at a level they had never seen before. The first night Lily sent me access to her shared folder, I stayed up until 2 in the morning reviewing contracts. 47 files. Half of them disorganized. Vendor agreements with vague setup windows. Payment schedules with no contingency clauses. A caterer who had not confirmed final headcount procedures. It was chaos disguised as Pinterest. By sunrise, I had built a master operations spreadsheet. Timeline segmented by week. Vendor accountability grid. Risk matrix. Backup contacts. Redundancies. No one asked me to do it that way. That was just how my brain worked. Week 1, I called the venue. They had only allocated 4 hours for full ceremony and reception setup. Impossible. I walked the coordinator through a minute-by-minute breakdown of delivery, installation, and staging. Silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, "You're military, aren't you?" "Air Force," I replied. "I thought so," she said. "Fine. I'll open the space 2 hours earlier." First obstacle cleared. The caterer was next. They had postponed a tasting twice. I requested the owner directly and calmly referenced the clause outlining performance obligations. I didn't threaten. I simply stated the timeline consequences of further delay. The tasting was scheduled within 24 hours. Vendors respond to confidence. Especially when it's quiet. Lily called me every few days, voice anxious but grateful. "Is everything okay?" she'd ask. "Everything is on track," I'd say. She never asked how I made it on track. She just exhaled with relief. My mother called once, her tone curious. "Lily says you've taken over everything." Taken over. As if I'd stormed the planning out of nowhere. "I'm coordinating it," I corrected. "That's wonderful," she said lightly. "It must be easier than your regular work." I paused. "It's different," I said evenly. She hummed, unconvinced, and changed the subject. "Daniel called during week 7. His voice carried a steadiness I recognized. "I've seen the timeline you sent the vendors," he said. "That's impressive." I waited. "You run this like a joint operation," he added. I almost smiled. "Same principles," I said. "Clear objectives. Defined roles. Contingencies." He was quiet for a moment. "You don't talk much about what you do," he said. "No one asks much about it," I replied. That silence lingered between us. It wasn't awkward. It was awareness forming. By week 10, everything was locked. Florist placement diagrams confirmed. Caterer timing sequenced. DJ cues integrated into the master timeline. I created a wedding day command sheet broken down by 15-minute increments. When I sent it to the vendor group, one responded, "This is the most organized event file we've ever received." I didn't tell my family that. I didn't need to. The rehearsal dinner was the first shift in the atmosphere. It was smaller. Quieter. Lily stood to speak and thanked everyone for their support. Then she hesitated. "And I need to thank my sister, Abigail," she said, her voice catching slightly. "She stepped in when everything fell apart and saved this wedding." The room applauded. I kept my expression composed, but something subtle moved inside me. It wasn't validation. It was acknowledgement. My father nodded once across the table. Daniel watched me with open respect. It was the first time I felt seen in that room. The wedding day began at 0530 hours. I arrived at the venue before most vendors, tablet in hand, printed backup copies of the timeline secured in my folder. The florist was 15 minutes late. I recalculated installation flow. Adjusted staging. No raised voice. Just execution. The caterer arrived on time. The DJ confirmed cue sheets. The cake delivery matched the schedule down to the minute. By 11:30, the space was transformed. White florals aligned perfectly. Place cards positioned with symmetrical precision. Lighting adjusted for afternoon photography angles. When Lily walked in, she stopped mid-step. "Abby, it's perfect." I nodded. "Hair and makeup are upstairs. You're on schedule." She hugged me impulsively. I didn't hug back right away. Not because I didn't care. Because I was still managing variables in my head. The ceremony began at precisely 1400 hours. No delays. No confusion. Guests flowed seamlessly from ceremony to cocktail hour. I coordinated transitions quietly from the perimeter. Invisible. Effective. During dinner, my father leaned slightly toward me. "This is well executed," he said. It was the closest thing to praise he had offered in years. "Thank you," I replied simply. Then came the moment that changed everything. Daniel stood unexpectedly during toasts. "I want to recognize someone who made today possible," he said. The room quieted. He turned toward me. "Abigail didn't just help. She led. She took chaos and turned it into precision. That's not wedding planning. That's leadership." Silence. Then applause. Real applause. My mother blinked as if recalibrating her understanding of me in real time. My father's jaw tightened slightly. Not in disapproval. In realization. After dinner, the retired Navy uncle who once asked if I'd ever been promoted approached me. "I owe you an apology," he said plainly. "I misjudged you." I met his eyes. "Most people do," I answered calmly. It wasn't bitterness. It was fact. The reception unfolded flawlessly. Every cue triggered. Every vendor delivered. No crisis. No scramble. Just execution. As guests began leaving, Lily pulled me aside. "I didn't know you did things like this," she admitted quietly. "You never asked," I replied. It wasn't sharp. Just honest. She swallowed. "I'm sorry." That was new. When the last table was cleared and the venue lights dimmed, I stood alone in the now empty room for a moment. The air still smelled faintly of flowers and champagne. I felt no triumph. No revenge. Just clarity. They had finally witnessed competence instead of assuming absence. And it took a crisis for them to look closely enough to see it. But something still lingered. Recognition from a wedding was one thing. Understanding my career was another. This wasn't the final confrontation. It was the opening. 2 days later, my mother called. "Everyone is asking who the planner was," she said. "They were shocked when I said it was you." Shocked. I let the word hang. "Why shocked?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "They just didn't realize you had those skills." Those skills. I closed my eyes briefly. It's my job, Mom, I said. Not the wedding part. The leadership part. Silence. Your father wants to talk to you, she said finally. I felt the shift before it happened. The real conversation was coming. The one that had been building for years. And this time, I wasn't going to sit quietly at the back of the room. Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt different before I even walked through the door. The same brick exterior. The same trimmed hedges. The same porch light my mother always left on. But the air felt charged, like the moment before a briefing when everyone knows something significant is about to be said. My father opened the door himself. That alone told me this wasn't casual. Abigail, he said evenly. No nod this time. No half smile. Just direct eye contact. We sat at the dining table after dessert, the plates cleared, the polite conversation finished. Lily and Daniel remained. My mother folded her hands tightly in her lap. My father leaned back slightly, studying me as if reassessing a file he'd overlooked for years. Daniel mentioned your rank, he said finally. Captain. Yes, sir, I replied out of habit. He noticed the reflex. How long? 5 years. A subtle shift crossed his face. That's not entry level. No, sir. He was quiet. Then came the question that almost made me laugh. Why didn't you ever explain what you actually do? I held his gaze steadily. I did. Multiple times. You just didn't listen. Silence expanded across the table. My mother's breath caught. Lily stared down at her coffee. Daniel didn't move. My father's jaw tightened slightly. Not anger. Recognition. Then explain it now, he said. It wasn't a challenge. It was an opening. So I did. I told him about mission planning cycles. About coordinating multi-unit logistics under compressed timelines. About the joint exercise where our primary strategy collapsed mid-execution and I built an alternative in real time, rerouting assets and stabilizing the situation before failure cascaded. I told him about earning my call sign, Valkyrie 6, after that operation. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't exaggerate. I stated facts. When I finished, the room was very still. My father's eyes had changed. Not softened. Sharpened. Valkyrie 6, he repeated quietly. Daniel spoke then. That call sign carries weight. My father looked at him. You've heard it? Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything said that night at the engagement dinner. My father leaned forward slightly. I underestimated you, he said. No deflection. No humor. Just a statement. That was the closest thing to an apology he was capable of offering. Yes, I replied calmly. You did. My mother blinked rapidly, emotions rising. We never meant to make you feel small, she said softly. Intent doesn't erase impact, I answered, but my tone wasn't harsh. It was measured. Lily finally spoke. I was wrapped up in my own life. I thought your career was abstract. I didn't understand it. You didn't try to, I said. The truth needed air. I know, she whispered. That dinner didn't end in tears. It didn't end in dramatic embraces. It ended in something more solid. Awareness. My father asked a few more questions about my unit. Real questions. Follow-ups. He listened to the answers. That was new. Over the next few months, the shift continued. My mother called more frequently, asking specific questions instead of vague ones. My father sent occasional emails about logistics articles he'd read. Lily texted me articles about women in command roles and asked what I thought. It wasn't perfect, but it was effort. Then in early fall, I received deployment orders. 6 months. Location classified. High-level coordination role. I called my mother first. "Will you be safe?" she asked immediately. It was the first time she had ever led with that question. "I know what I'm doing," I said gently. "I know you do," she replied. And she meant it. I told Lily over coffee. She went quiet. "We just started getting this right," she said. "It's part of the job," I replied. She looked at me differently now. Not confused. Not dismissive. Just aware. "Come back," she said softly. "I will." The deployment was intense. High tempo. Minimal margin for error. My team executed flawlessly. The mission succeeded. And when I landed back home 6 months later, my family was waiting at the gate. My father shook my hand firmly. "Welcome home, Captain," he said with unmistakable respect. Lily hugged me tight. My mother cried openly. Something had fundamentally shifted. Not because I demanded recognition, but because I stopped shrinking. Years passed. Promotions came. Responsibility increased. I made major. Then lieutenant colonel. The ceremony took place on a clear Tuesday morning. Silver oak leaves pinned to my shoulders. My commanding officer read my service record aloud. My team stood proudly nearby. And in the front row sat my family. My father, now slower but still upright. My mother clutching a camera. Lily beside Daniel, their 2 children sitting quietly between them. When the applause ended, my father approached me. He looked at the insignia on my uniform and then into my eyes. "Lieutenant Colonel Abigail Turner," he said slowly. "That fits." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't emotional. But it was earned. "I'm proud of you," he added. He had said it before over the years. But this time, it carried weight. Not obligation. Understanding. Lily hugged me carefully. "I was wrong about you for so long," she said. "You weren't wrong," I corrected gently. "You just didn't see me." She nodded, tears forming. "I see you now." Daniel shook my hand firmly. "Ma'am," he said with a grin. "Don't start," I replied, rolling my eyes. But we both understood what that word meant. Respect. That afternoon, I sat alone in my office for a moment, the new rank still unfamiliar on my shoulders. I thought about that engagement dinner years ago. The toast. The implication that I had chosen the easy path. The quiet humiliation of being invisible. And I realized something important. They didn't say I failed because I had. They said it because they didn't understand what success looked like in my world. Other people's limited perspective does not define your value. Their silence does not erase your achievements. Their misunderstanding does not diminish your impact. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to shout. I needed to remain consistent long enough for the evidence to become undeniable. They see me now. Not perfectly. Not completely. But clearly. And that's enough. That night at the engagement dinner didn't fix my family. It forced me to decide who I was without their approval. The rest followed from there. So if you've ever sat at a table where people underestimated you, if you've ever been written off by the very people you would have defended without hesitation, let me tell you this. You do not have to shrink to keep the peace. You do not have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Live your truth long enough, and eventually the facts will speak louder than their assumptions. If this story resonated with you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated until the truth came out? Did you walk away, or did you stand your ground? If you believe in building your worth quietly and letting your results speak, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I share real stories about boundaries, consequences, and reclaiming your power. I'll see you in the next one.